Today I have the pleasure of welcoming Chuck Garcia to the Luxembourg School of Business. Chuck is a faculty member at Columbia University, best-selling author and founder of Climb Leadership International. His acclaimed books include A Climb to the Top and The Moment That Defines You. Now we're going to explore some of the elements in A Climb to the Top. So Chuck, tell me what's the climb about? What's the mountain? Give me a bit of the context.
Well, Adam, thank you very much for having me here. As for the context, I became a mountaineer several years ago due to some circumstances that caused me to go to try to find myself. I was scheduled to speak on September 11th on the 107th floor of the World Trade Center at 9:20 in the morning. And if you remember that day in history, the planes hit at 8:59 and at 9:13. I was supposed to be there. Through a simple twist of fate, I wasn't. I was on a list that was presumed and unaccounted for and presumed dead. Sadly, 3 of my colleagues died that were up there because of the speech that I was going to give, and as history has shown, almost 3,000 people died. The reason I say that, I had to ask myself a really important question. Why was it not my day to die? Why was I not there? I was supposed to be, and everybody thought I was, but through the hand of God or whatever, it caused me to reflect on how can I not answer this question? I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it, but I had read 2 books back to back. One of them was called Into Thin Air by a guy named John Krakauer, which described a mountain climb in Everest where a lot of people died. And the other was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which was an account in Auschwitz how he lost his parents. I said it only because it led me, in between the 2 of them, I needed to search for meaning, and this mountain climbing thing really piqued my interest. So, with my family's support, I went out to, in the United States, the U.S.'s tallest mountain in the 48 states is called Mount Rainier. I climbed Rainier thinking, what would I do with this? Oh my God. It was through the joy of that mountain, and it felt like a career. I took stock of how I got there. The goal at the time was get to the top. I've adjusted that goal subsequently. We took a step at a time, like in a career. There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to any mountain I've ever climbed or any CEO I've ever worked with. It's small steps, it's increments. And then you can't do it alone. The best part of that mountain climb was the collaboration that came with several people unified at an effort. And some climbers were more fit than others, some were more technically adept. We were a unit, and we made it to the top, and we made it to the bottom, and we celebrated. So it was from that mindset that was developed when I decided to write the book, A Climb to the Top. It is not a book on mountaineering. It is a book that uses mountaineering as a metaphor for how to climb careers, but instead of the ice sacks and the crampons that I used to climb a mountain, it's the series of communication and rhetorical techniques that I developed over my many years of public speaking around the world.
So just start on the goal, because you said the goal changed from getting to the top.
Right.
Now, and then you said something which we got to the top and then got to the bottom.
Right.
So has your goal changed through your career as well? In some ways, you're not the ambition. It's not all about getting to the top. It's not just the ambition. It's about the whole journey.
Indeed. Well, as I think about what do mountaineers strive to do, and to many of them, they mark their metrics of success by the number of summits they climbed. I have a wife and 4 children. My goal is to get home to my family, which means I hope I summit a mountain. God knows I've summited many. I've been on 2 expeditions. We didn't. Those expeditions were not a failure because I got home to my family. So I had to rethink about this and be conscious of the goal isn't always necessarily the thing you set out to do, or when you do, you begin to rethink, what do I really want to do? Because there's never a failure for not getting to the top. But if I didn't get home, a failure to my children and to my wife. So in careers, not much different. The first part of the 25 years of my Wall Street career was very much focused on myself, focused on making money, just doing the best you can, both for my family and for my career. You want the power, the prestige, the pride, and the money that comes with career climbing.
Were you a trader? What were you?
No, I worked for 3 organizations. I was head of Latin America. I worked for a company called Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg is one of the richest men in the world, and he started about 40 years ago a company that started on how to analyze stocks and bonds. And it was a machine, so to speak, at the time, where anybody who traded could go into that service and figure out bond yields, stock prices, and news. I sold that, what's called a Bloomberg terminal, for the first part of my career. And for 7 years, I sold that thing called the Bloomberg terminal to Latin American countries. But for the next 7 years, I was the company's public spokesman. I traveled all over the world, stepping on stages for this man that was now forming a juggernaut of a company where Bloomberg became a massive and incredible part of the financial ecosystem between investment managers and investment brokers. The Bloomberg sits right in between. My job was to go out to the world and communicate the value proposition. And then from there, I went to a large company called BlackRock, the world's largest investment manager. And I say that because, to me, in that part of how I thought about my career, doing great, but also to the other part of my life. I have a wife and 4 children, and they needed me at home, and they needed me to be present. My wife needed my support. My kids needed a dad. So I did the very best I could to recognize that that career was part of the life, the responsibility I owed to myself, but also, and I never was far from that, I have a responsibility to them. So I think many of us, including you, I'm sure, trying to find that equilibrium. And it's not easy. And you don't know what's right or wrong. You're just trying to do your best in one place, then do your best in another place, recognizing you don't know.
And the risk is you compromise everywhere.
There is nothing else.
Yep.
In many ways. I was very fortunate in that mountaineering, Adam, became that third part of my life, where every couple of years I went on a different expedition, but it wasn't like golf every Saturday morning. It happened a year, another year would go by, another 2 years. They became events, 10 days, 2 weeks. So I say that because when I wrote A Climb to the Top, I was very conscious, all of us, you, me, anyone, particularly the students, you're all at this place on a mountain. Okay, you're in a career mountain. Setting the goal, what is it? Recognizing it's likely to change. Because even I am in the second part of my career, I have tremendous fulfillment that I never had in my first. But I made 100 times more money in my first than I did in my second. Whatever, it's just not as important as it used to be, so the values change. Taking a step at a time. Adam, I teach at Columbia. 90% of my student body wants to be CEO of their company by the time they're 26. All I can say is good luck. I wish you well. I'm asking you to rethink your goal.
So what should people do? What should be the time frame they should be aiming for?
I suggest to my students, I think everyone right out of college, even graduate school, if you don't have work experience, should work in a big machine. Amazon, whatever that may be, and here's why. Before you launch your startup, to me, it's not about the idea, it's about the execution of the idea. If you have good people and a good idea, you got a shot at making it work. If you have a great idea and people that are not on the same page, it's doomed for failure. And so what I encourage my students, go into that world and find out how you interact, how you work with and against people, how you play the politics. Many people in careers are unnerved because they get passed up for the promotion that they feel they deserve. So now it's no longer a thing of the mind, it's a thing of the heart. And where many careers that I find, Adam, they get crushed on the weight of the emotions. All of a sudden they hate what they do now, they hate everybody they do it with. I appreciate that may be a consequence of the company you're in, but when you start your entrepreneurial venture, the stakes are so much higher because it's all you. If you're in that big company, you don't like it, you give notice, 2 weeks later you're working for someone else. That just doesn't feel the same weight when you take the decision to take your capital and to ask other people for money. The enormous responsibility that comes with that, and it's a very good thing. You don't want to get it wrong. Why I encourage it with the students, if you don't have experience managing the unpredictability and the emotions of people, which to me is the biggest underestimation in careers. We overestimate the importance of intellect. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. We want to be around smart people, but we underestimate 2 things. Our temperament and the capacity to self-correct and adapt in uncertain times. And that's why I ask anyone with entrepreneurial ambitions. I commend them. It's a very good thing. Make it a side hustle for a couple years before you spring it out. What you learn though, Adam, is you don't just learn about the other people. You learn about yourself. You learn what you tolerate. You learn how to listen, how to communicate, what not to do. You got a bad boss, you model the behaviors of, hopefully you model the good ones. But I think finding yourself, becoming present in what you're doing. Now you are reflecting yourself on the people that you are putting into your company. You're setting the culture, you're setting the direction, you're communicating a lot of things. And what happens when it all goes wrong? I just think, in my advice, get that, feel that experience, find your tribe. You'll find them right in your company. You know who has credibility, trust, and respect. Those are the people, when you're ready to launch your thing, go get them. You don't want to get those first hiring decisions wrong. And it's not about intellect, it's not about where they went to school. I have given up on all of that because I haven't seen any correlation. And I teach at an Ivy. No offense to them. They're awesome and they're brilliant, but that doesn't mean I would hire them because their resume says so. I need to know, are they credible? Do they align their actions and words? Do they deliver on their promises? This is what they should be teaching in college. All the formulas I memorized endlessly in college and forgot the next day after the exam, I'm almost resentful of that because it didn't help me one iota.
Yeah. It's interesting the way that it's gone from setting the goal of getting up the mountain, getting back down, and one step at a time, not rushing too much in your career, to understand how to work with people because you don't go alone.
Right.
That kind of brings those three ideas together, and at the core of it is communication. So you went from being a sales guy, where you're selling this box, and obviously you need intellect to understand it, but you've gone from sales then to communication specialist. So how valuable is communication?
How valuable? Well, I'll put it another way.
Yeah.
What is the cost of bad communication?
Okay.
And the reason I say that, in addition to Columbia, I do three things. A quarter of my time is teaching in the Graduate School of Engineering at Columbia. I teach human skills. I teach right brain skills, mostly public speaking and emotional intelligence. Second part, I do a lot of professional speaking around the world. And half of my time, I teach people either to be a public spokesman, I teach them public speaking, or I teach them emotional intelligence. And to me, they're opposite sides of the same coin. Because public speaking, there's a lot of pressure, visibility. Every word you say is going to be dissected. That unnerves people. Learning and helping them to stay calm under the weight of the pressure and the expectations, they go together. Like an athlete about to kick a football into a goal. 50,000 screaming fans, you don't have the luxury of getting that wrong. You want the best kicker? No. You want the individual who is best under that pressure, because they got a better shot than the guy who's more technically adept. So in that, I teach both of them. I think about that communication first. What happens when you miscommunicate and you cause self-inflicted harm? It kills reputations. Sometimes a simple little thing, give thought to your words, say what you mean what you say, but that's part of it. But I will say, Adam, what I learned over the years in my Wall Street career, nobody told us in college how important it was to be a clear, concise, and purposeful communicator. That just wasn't part of my curriculum. No offense, I had a good college experience. But in looking back at it, I said, why did not anybody help us with this? There was value to my education, but it was cram, exam, and regurgitate, most of it. And some of that was valuable. But nowhere in my career was that ever part of it.
You don't sit on your own and just go through something and then hit an exam. Your career is about dealing with the hard problems, dealing with people.
Exactly.
You don't go on your own.
So to your question on how important is communication, sadly, we spend 60% of our time collaborating and only 25% of what we communicate is actually understood. Think about the gap in there. Why it is things go wrong. Why it is you tell 5 people, you ask them to do something. 1 is going to get it perfect. 1 is not even going to get close. It's a bell curve. 3 are going to get it partly right, which means they got it partly wrong. Now you're trying to execute, and you, particularly for your past in oil and gas, what's the consequence of getting that pipe wrong? You gush oil all over the ocean. It's no different in my Wall Street world. First, we start with what are the consequences and the self-inflicted harm if you don't do it right, which means we take the reciprocal of that. What are the benefits of clear, concise communication? First, to minimize any damage. Second, to improve the collaboration among others so that you're executing correctly. And third, it's the unifying effort on all. Because people do all kinds of different professions, but the one thing we have in common is communicating to each other. So you're bringing an engineer, a project manager, a sales guy. They all care about very different things. And whatever is communicated, they see it through the lens of their self-interest, which means A is not thinking about B and B doesn't care about C. They have their own thing. So when we get that wrong and you give, say, the directive and everyone goes out doing it and you come back a month later and you find out the project has gone wrong, I don't want to say all the time it's bad communication, but often I get hired to help that, to ensure and to minimize the damage, to maximize the productivity. And sadly, a lot of the lack of productivity comes from not clear, concise, purposeful communication, but just a whole lot of too much and too fast. And then you just expect them to interpret what was in my head. Why doesn't anybody do what I say? Because you didn't communicate it well.
Yeah, that's some of those things really clearly resonate with me. And so the book then is A Climb to the Top. So a lot of this is in A Climb to the Top.
What I describe in A Climb to the Top, to put it into context, there is a framework, and I think of it as a toolkit. And the framework in A Climb to the Top is called the 10 Commandments of Great Communicators. It is, each chapter is a commandment. Each commandment, either what I developed over the years or listening to Martin Luther King, Winston Churchill, the people I looked up to, I started to listen to. Sometimes I would not even have a camera. I wanted to hear how they spoke, how they breathed, how they paused. Winston Churchill, the master of rhetoric, but there was a style to him that you remembered. Martin Luther King, grown out of the evangelistic church, he had a certain way. I didn't aspire to be either one of them, but each chapter, and I'll give you an example to make it tangible. What I just did, it's called the power of the pause. And an entire chapter is devoted to pausing. Why? So that the speaker can think about your next word, take the time, so you're not blurting out something wrong. And to the listener, they're catching up to you. So think about just the power of. Just through that, I'm thinking, and somebody else is catching up. That's one chapter. Second chapter, just to make this more tangible, Adam. It's called the Rule of Three, a Greek rhetorical technique. I came, I saw, I conquered. When I eat Rice Krispies, it feels like snap, crackle, and pop. When I listen to music, I listen to a band called Earth, Wind, and Fire. So that Rule of Three, I combine that with the power of the pause, and then 8 additional chapters, techniques like that. And it's not necessarily for public speaking, it's a book on communication. The way I'm communicating to you is the way I will communicate on the TED stage. The way I communicate to my wife and children, it's the same. It is a framework. If you treat it with rigor and discipline, the way an engineer learns a toolkit, it's the same thing.
And I like the bit where you brought it back to the family as well, because we're communicating all the time. It's not
time.
all about work, it's in our personal lives as well. So.
And important here, some people I work with think they go to work, they turn on a switch, and they communicate in some way. And then they go home, what do? They shut the switch off. I'm not smart enough for 2 switches. I just want one switch. I wake up in the morning, good morning, enthusiasm, and then when I go out and I hit the office, wherever I go, I'm the same person. Just a consistency to my character. And I learned that in A Climb to the Top, that as I was writing it originally to be a book about career climbing, people were always asking, oh, it's a book on public speaking. Well, I understand why you would imply that, because I learned it from that art of public speaking. But what I found, if I'm in a coffee shop with you, it's the same techniques. Why would I not use them? And that's what it's about.
Excellent. So A Climb from the Top, bestseller. It will be anywhere when people wants to get it. And there's a
my executive coaching company is called Climb Leadership International. I coach executives in all kinds of companies, mostly financial institutions, because that's my pedigree. So as you can see in my branding, a climb to the top, climb leadership. All I've done here is talk about mountains. It's just my thing. It's my distinct